Welcome to part 2 of a 3-part series titled 10 Hard Truths That Make It Difficult to Be a Lean Hospital Leader. We're counting down the hard truths, and in the first part of the series we talked about Truth 10, you need a roadmap and a master plan. Truth 9, all value streams need to be mapped and standardized. And Truth 8, every department needs a mentor. None of these are particularly easy things to accomplish, but, as we also said, if lean was completely easy, then every hospital would be lean. Let's continue now on our journey. In part 2, we'll be discussing 4 of the 10 hard truths. Hard truth number 7, and remember that we're counting down, is that your staff must be engaged. Engaged is another word for involved or actively participating. In this case, we're talking about the participation of continuous process improvement. That is, being willing and able as a staff member to look closely at what you're doing daily and to come up with improvement suggestions on ways to make your job easier and better. The level of staff engagement is one important measurement of the level of lean maturity of the hospital. One of the lean pioneers in the U.S., Norman Bodek, wrote a book titled The Idea Generator: Quick and Easy Kaizen. The focus of this book is on building a lean culture and maintaining a suggestion system that actually works. The emphasis is on small ideas that are easy to think up and easy to approve and easy to implement or to do. Many hospitals already have suggestion systems in place, but the problem is you don't get very many ideas. This book describes how to manage the system correctly. Now let's take a look at what is actually possible with actual data. This is a hard truth because building a culture in which staff is highly engaged takes a long time. It's not easy or automatic, even for companies that have been working on this for a long time. Now, just in case you're wondering whether or not a high level of engagement or involvement is even possible, here are some statistics from a number of different mature lean companies. The lowest company shown here was receiving a little less than 1 suggestion per employee per month, and many of them exceed 3 suggestions per month. Now, I've seen this with my own eyes, so there's no doubt that this level of engagement is possible. And if you're not even close to this, then that's an indication of what to aspire to. So set a goal of 1 idea per month per staff member and work towards that. It should even be easier for hospitals than manufacturing companies, given the fact that your staff is probably a little better educated. The ideas we look for can be big ones, of course, but primarily you're looking for small suggestions. Here's a suggestion and then a project that was able to be completed in about 1 day, with a team of 4 people working on it. This, needless to say, is the before picture. And here's the space afterwards. The hardest thing about a project like this will be the sustaining of the changes and having a process in place to make sure it doesn't backslide to the previous condition. That's an important part of the 7S process. That's 5S plus safety and security. So imagine hundreds or thousands of small, medium, and large projects being conducted continually. And imagine how that could revolutionize patient care and staff satisfaction at your hospital. Okay, let's move on to the next hard truth. The next hard truth, number 6 in our countdown, is what we call real-time performance tracking. Think about driving a car or flying an airplane. If the speedometer shows how fast you were going last week or last month, it's not going to be terribly helpful in driving the car. Or if the altimeter in the plane shows your altitude an hour ago, that could make for a risky flight. A lean term that you should know is pitch. And it's not even Japanese. That's a surprise, right? From a metrics or data collection point of view, the pitch will be the reporting frequency. For example, in manufacturing, we may have a production line with a production rate of 5 minutes per unit. Every 5 minutes we produce a unit. We may have an electronic and automatic system for tracking finished products, in which case The pitch would be every 5 minutes we capture the data. However, if we're reporting progress manually, we don't necessarily need to know how we're doing every 5 minutes. We just need feedback often enough to make course corrections in time and not wait until the end of the day or tomorrow to find out that we didn't meet our production target for the day. So a reasonable pitch might be to report status every hour, for example. So let's take a look at an actual performance board being used to display OR status. And this will probably be familiar to many of you, and I know some of you have electronic versions of this board as well. This is just one example among many. Another term that is used these days is dashboard, that we use to steer the organization. What data do we need to record, and how often should we record it, is the question. And one final point. Most mature lean organizations, even those that can afford any fancy system that exists, they record and display this data manually. Now, why manually? Because it's immediate. You don't need a computer to enter the data or to see it, and staff has direct ownership of the numbers. So the message here is that you need to have a dashboard to allow you to keep your department on course. And that dashboard needs to be maintained in real time or close to real time. Okay, let's move on to hard truth number 5. Hard truth number 5 is continuous process improvement is nothing special. We might even say it's a habit in mature lean organizations. If it's special, then it's not yet embedded in your hospital culture, and it can easily go away. So think of it this way. Before you become a parent, it's really hard to imagine being responsible for a small human being. It seems very strange, hard to imagine. But once you become a parent, and really pretty quickly, it becomes nothing special. Now, I'm not saying your kids are not special. I'm saying that the strangeness of being a parent wears off. In the world of lean, continuous improvement is a big deal. This is a classical definition of lean used at Toyota: continuous improvement and respect for people. You can appreciate that both of these elements are more cultural than tool-based. It's a way of thinking and behaving, and less a matter of applying specific techniques. So how do you continually improve? Is there a process or steps that lean organizations typically follow? And the answer is yes. Here are some general guidelines for how to kickstart a continuous improvement effort. What we found works best with our new hospital clients is to start with mapping out the current state of some of the more important value streams. That may include perioperative services and the emergency department, but the main point is to identify value streams where most of your hospital volume is, or of where there's a lot of process-related pain. It's truly amazing how many improvement ideas can emerge from a value stream mapping effort. It would not be too unusual to identify over 50 improvement opportunities in a single value stream project. Of course, some are smaller than others. These ideas will need to be organized. So set up a database or spreadsheet to keep track of them in a formal way. Value stream mapping is not the only tool you can use to get started. Creating a fishbone diagram of a set of processes can be very useful if you're trying to identify the root cause of a problem. The 5 whys technique is similar but simpler, and even that may be sufficient to highlight problems and potential solutions. So here's an example of a value stream mapping project created physically with sticky notes on a wall. It may not look too pretty, and it can be cleaned up later on, but this effort led to the identification and eventual implementation of dozens of improvement ideas. Every one of your major value streams needs to have an analysis done, something like this, as a part of your nothing special improvement culture. Okay, let's move on to hard truth number 4. Hard truth number 7 is the PAR method is broken. Now, PAR is the method used by most hospitals to replenish supplies. So let's talk about why it's broken and what you can do about it. This subject may be a bit controversial, but in our opinion, the par level method is a broken process and needs to be replaced. Now, why do I say this? Because there's virtually no lean manufacturing company that uses it, even under conditions where they do have a high level of variability, like hospitals. And don't think that a factory with 1,000 people doesn't take material shortages as seriously as you do, just because they build products instead of working with patients. There is an alternative to PAR called Kanban, and the Kanban method does share certain characteristics with PAR, in fact. So let's take a quick look at the Kanban method. Here's a simple flow chart of how a Kanban system would work. The main difference between PAR and Kanban is that supplies are replenished in a Kanban system based on actual usage with no counting being needed. When a quantity is consumed, for example, if the container is empty, that is the signal to restock with a standard quantity. While the quantity of the item is being refilled, there are one or more additional quantities available for use. Now, that signal could be an empty container, or it could be a card, or it could even be an automated electronic signal. The need for daily counting or eyeballing is eliminated completely, and one entire supply replenishment rounding trip is no longer needed. Here's another description of how a Kanban system would work, this time using an OR example. Step number 1 in this example is that an individual, probably a nurse or a technician, would go to the sterile core and get the supply that they need. Second step is, if you do this often enough, the bin or the box number 1, will go empty. Step number 3, that's the time to raise a signal that the box number 1 is empty. That could be a card, could be a switch, could be an automated signal, could be the empty container itself. Step number 4 is, we're not out yet because we have a secondary quantity, or box number 2, so we continue consuming the supply that we need. Step number 5 is, the empty containers, if we're using that method, are retrieved by supplies management as part of a regular replenishment cycle. The signal, which is the empty box, or it could be a card, goes back to central stores and is simply refilled and returned on the next supplies management milk run. So you'll notice here there is no need for counting. Now keep in mind, in this example we're using a two-bin, what is called a two-bin system, but you don't need two physical bins. A single bin could be divided into 2 sections, for example. This concludes part 2 of this series on the hard truths of being a lean hospital leader. And you can appreciate that there's a lot to know about lean deployment in a hospital. This list we're showing here is a partial list of the tools and strategies that will be covered in our upcoming live workshop in September. In particular, we want you to become a lean leader or become a better one if you already are one. To that end, you'll need to understand how to apply the lean methods, but more importantly, how to develop the habits that you need to have in order to work with others and sustain process improvements. So click on the link on this page to view a detailed PDF brochure with a lot more information. The workshop will be hosted by CONMED at their state-of-the-art facility in Largo, Florida, just outside of Tampa, on September 15th. So we hope to see you there.